I have recently received a lot of questions around breath and teachings and working with people, or as well just in conversations with friends or family. It came up that for a lot of people it is very challenging to expand their breath, and the breath is really, really important in life and any work that we do, and simply in being alive. And I feel the call to address this topic and to also create some support, some small sessions. I have a few practices that I'd like to share that have really supported me and that I do really enjoy practicing. Whenever I feel called to that. And right now I just like to kind of scratch the surface and speak a bit about breath, because there is so much to say, so much to kind of remember when it comes to breath. And on a kind of, let's say, holistic way of perception, breath is the essence of life. In a lot of traditions and cultures, there is really put a lot of emphasis on the breath, because there's also this idea that as human beings we only have a certain amount of breaths, let's say, available in our lives, and that the more we enter into a state of calm, slow breathing, the more life we are able to live. And for example, if we look into the more Abrahamic, Christian, Jewish perception, the Holy Spirit is the breath. It's also in the word. It's the ruach hadekucha. It has the ruach, the air in it, and it's the holy breath, and it's that perception that it's actually that holy breath, that Holy Spirit that is breathing through us. And also, if we go beyond this perception of it being bound to Christianity or to this part of the world's kind of heritage of perception and of spirituality, there is a universal way of understanding that breath is the element of air moving through us, moving within us, and interconnecting us. So on the level of breath, we are permanently, constantly connected to the wholeness of life, of earth, of creation, of this whole planet. That every breath that we take, every bit of air that we breathe, is actually connected with every bit of air on this earth, meaning the breath I receive can be a breath of inspiration. Maybe you are aware that for example, in French, breathing in is inspire and expire. And that makes it very that shows it very well how the breath is the spirit that we connect with, and how this breath that we breathe here, wherever we are, let's say me, I am in Germany right now, that the breath I receive can be linked, or is linking me and is linked to the whole globe, to someone who's living in Russia, in Japan, in the Americas, in Africa. It's all one air. And we can receive inspiration through our breath. And it's also really important to take care of and to be aware of the quality of air that we surround ourselves with. Yeah, so that's also important in your life, to take care, to kind of look into how is the quality of air in the spaces that I am moving through. For example, if you live in a city, and if you're living in a house, which most of us do, and depending on the materials used in building that house, the quality of air is very, very different. And to just kind of become more mindful of what access do I have to air, how am I relating, how aware am I, if I can breathe well. Because also on the level of nervous system, our breath is the main regulatory kind of tool that we have in any moment. You can really observe it very well if a human or an animal or anybody is experiencing shock, fear, anxiety. The breath instantly changes. And in most cases, people are generally not aware of how they breathe. And our breath is also influenced by the posture that we take. You know, if I have my chest open, or if I'm sitting or living, walking with my shoulders really shrugged and tucked in, it makes a huge difference. And also how constrained my diaphragm is, or my belly, and how much I am holding constantly, if my nervous system is at rest or not. And then we have that dimension of just a general kind of understanding of, you know, we already spoke about that the breath that we breathe is the essence of life, that we are constantly kind of in that stream. It's a never ceasing stream. You know, these days there are a lot of different breathwork practices out there which are wonderful and really helpful for so many different things. And one of them is, for example, the connected breath, where you just don't stop. And it's really interesting to just begin to observe the state of your own breath, and to kind of observe, how do you breathe in which part of your body does your breath go? You know, if you breathe in, do you breathe into your belly? Do you breathe into your lungs? Or maybe you even just stop here. You know, it's very different for people depending on their state of physicality, of age, of inner and outer circumstances, of awareness, of cultivation. And so just observing, like, where do I breathe? How do I expand? How does it feel for me to breathe in? Do I feel like I can breathe in and I can breathe out fully? And that was something that was really like a kind of surprise to me recently. I didn't realize it until that moment when a student in yoga, after a yoga class, came to me and asked me about breath. I had that moment of realization because in my classes I guide a lot with breath, with like moving with the inhalation and the exhalation, and kind of, you know, merging that movement with the breath. And I use the word a lot, like completely inhale and completely exhale, fully inhale, fully exhale, take a deep, deep breath. And just in that moment when that student who's very new to practicing yoga came and asked me about, like, you know, I struggle with breathing like that and breathing so deep and so on, and to just move with the breath. In that moment I realized that for someone who's never practiced anything like that and who's never really engaged with their breath in any conscious way, it could mean that they understand that when I say breathe in deeply or breathe in fully, completely, that they think I mean, and I mean the absolute opposite. I mean taking a slow, steady, deep inhale that will fully fill your lungs, because you will not be able to fully fill your lungs if you're just like sniffing in like that, like forcibly taking everything you can, and it won't work like that. And it's also really interesting, like that was, and same with exhale, to think that exhaling fully could mean like, whereas same for me, it's the opposite of what I mean. I mean inhaling very slowly, and exhaling slowly. And I find it very interesting as well, and want to mention that how the breath can be, with its relation to life, can be a very interesting mirror for us to, if we observe like how we breathe in and how we exhale, because there is a general understanding that the inhalation mirrors our relationship to life and to allowing life in, and the exhalation is letting go and also dying. And then we also have that state of holding, which is another story, but I first wanted to speak about the inhalation and the exhalation being related to living and dying, and how it can, like, if we begin to observe our own breath and kind of look into, how am I inhaling? Am I inhaling, like, am I inhaling in my full body? Am I am I breathing fully or shallow or constrained? And same with exhalation. It gives us so much to kind of contemplate about ourselves and our relationship to life and our fears, because we all have aspects where we fear life, and we all have aspects where we fear death. And maybe at different times in our lives, different parts are expressing differently. And and then it's, speaking about breath holding, in the yogic terms, the kumbhaka, can also be different perceptions on it. Cultivating kumbhaka is a beautiful practice of cultivating stillness and expansion, mental expansion, physical expansion, expansion of presence, of awareness, and of life, because you are in life so much that there is a freedom of any need to take in or to let go. And there are, in this world, there are fascinating human beings that maybe they're not, I don't know if it's still like human being the right term for them, but sadhus and wise yogis, practitioners who might actually live in that state of kumbhaka. Fascinating side note to that. And on the other hand, we have that hold, which is coming from a nervous system and trauma response of the freeze. We have the fight, flight, freeze. And as I already mentioned earlier, our breath shows us so much about the responses of our nerve and the state of our nervous system responding to different situations in our life. We all know that sigh of relief, which comes after having held our breath. And our breath can give us a lot of information about how safe we feel in a situation. You know, if you're around people and you notice that you're actually constantly holding your breath, it is really important to take a moment and check like what's going on, why you feel not safe. And it doesn't mean that that it's wrong to feel that way. It's just like something that's there for us to become aware of and to look at, okay, what needs to be seen there, what needs to be felt, maybe what's coming up that maybe is ancient or it's related to what's actually going on. You know, because sometimes we all have triggers. We all have experiences in our lives that have shaped us in certain ways and that we keep recreating in different levels to journey through them, to transcend them, or to kind of illuminate them and integrate them. And our breath can be a guide and a friend and a teacher and an inspiration in that sense, in that relationship and that exploration. And yeah, it is a lot. There are a lot of possibilities for us through observing our breath to get more deeply in touch with ourselves and with our relationship to life and how we relate to the people that we're around and in which state we are in at the moment. And that from a nervous system perception, as I already mentioned. And then also we have another level, we have two nostrils. And those two nostrils are related to two different sides of our brains as our bodies. We are this incarnation of union. We have both, no matter which gender we are, masculine and feminine aspects within us. And the two nostrils represent this very well, the two hemispheres, the masculine, the feminine. In the yogic, the Ida and Pingala. And it's really interesting to start your day or to whenever you kind of become aware of your breath in the morning or also throughout the day, to check in and see how you're breathing, like how balanced your nostrils are, as a kind of indication for how balanced your state of mind is, or also just how balanced, like which energy is predominant in this very moment, in this very day, in your life. Like check in. Like, how do I breathe? Where am I breathing mostly? Or maybe you also notice, like generally, that you have times where one nostril is always blocked. Then it's really, really interesting to look at like which one it is and how you could work on balancing this element, this archetypical energy that is currently blocked in your life, or maybe questioning, okay, if this is a mirror to, okay, there is a blockage, what is it actually caused by? Like, where are you blocking the flow of your feminine or of your masculine? Where are they not in harmony? Where's that blockage coming from? And what could you do to support yourself in rebalancing them? And a very simple practice just in regards to this is the typical, or like the classic Nadi Shodhana, the alternate nostril breathing, or also focusing on, as I said, if you wanna strengthen one aspect within you, like if you want to strengthen the feminine or the masculine in a certain day, generally the feminine being the left hemisphere, the left side, and the masculine being the right side. You could practice a single-sided nostril breathing. So you could close one nostril and practice breathing through the other. Yeah. So this is kind of a little just like flowing, sharing some aspects about breath and the importance of breath, kind of as an introduction or a beginning or invitation to feel into and to observe for yourself. And yeah, as I said, I am intending to create a few breath practices, just short practices like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd say max 20, for kind of different intensities, different ways of working with your breath. Because, for example, one way I really love to work with breath, and that has actually, I think that was what really was changing my relationship with breath, was when I began chanting, when I began singing mantras. But generally singing, I come from a family of musicians, of singers, and from there too, I know that breath is so essential. You cannot sing if you cannot breathe. And everybody who's ever been singing in a choir knows that the kind of practices you do to warm up your voice are also practices that will cultivate your breath, because they are so linked, right? And there's a whole nother kind of level to look at the relationship of breath and voice, and of how we use our voice to express, and the mirror of that, like, again, exhaling, kind of, as we usually speak, like speech and exhalation are both something that goes out into the world. Like, we take in, we receive, and then we give out. And to look also at that balance, like, is there a balance between what you're taking in and what you're taking out? And how is your relationship to letting go and also receiving? Because you need to let go to receive. And yeah, those two always need to be balanced. It does not mean that it's a static balance, that it's always exactly the same, but just kind of, being aware that it is a balancing journey. Yeah, let me just feel in if there is anything else coming up that wants to be shared in regards to breath. Yeah, maybe let's just take a few deep breaths together, just to close this little introduction, this little flow. So just close your eyes. And observe how your breath is flowing just now as you've been listening to my voice. Maybe you can observe how there is a relation to certain thought energies and the movement of your breath. And just center your breath, bring it down into your belly. Allow it to slow down. Imagine as if you would want to open up your nostrils even deeper, to take in this precious air fully. Filling yourself with that air and fully allowing it to stream out steadily. Yeah, already a different state, right? Thank you for receiving. I am curious what inspired you, or if there's anything you can relate with from what I just shared, or which experiences you have made with your breath so far. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love to answer them. And see you next time. Have a blessed day.